Okay guys, so in this video I'm going to show you the box model, so let's get into it. Now the box model is the way that basically every single web page displays elements on a page. So let me just show you the basic HTML as you can see here and the CSS that we're going to be working with. And then let's just dive right in. So the idea on the web is that everything is a box. Everything that you see on a web page is in a box of some sort. And the box model is simply the layout system, or the rules, if you will, that constrain and make up that box. So if we look at this side panel here in my Chrome Developer Tools, you can see the box model. This is actually how it's depicted. And the way it works is that every box starts the same way. It has a content area which contains the information that is inside the element, if there is such a thing. So for a div in this scenario, you can see that I have put this little one here, which is the content of my box. So that's the space that I am allowing my content to have. In other words, I've declared that, okay, there's going to be a width of 100 pixels and the height is going to be 50 pixels. And some extra padding and some text alignments and margins and stuff like that, right? So that's the content area. The next layer of my box is going to be the padding, and the padding is there so that I can let my content get some breathing room. And most of the time why I use this, or why we would use this, is because we have something like a border, for example. Now a border is just a way of framing the box itself, putting some sort of border around your content, right? And since you want sometimes to have that border, to have a little bit of a distance between the content and itself, so to give your content some breathing room, that's where the padding comes in. So the padding is inside, it's outside, right outside of the content, but it's before the border so that we can press our border out from the content and let it breathe. And then finally we have the margin, and the margin is just a way for you to declare white space. Now you can't color or do anything like that with margins, but you can tell the margin that, all right, I have this element here, and I just want you to give it some breathing room, some white space, that so it doesn't press up against other elements on the page, right? And this is all there is to the box model. Now, what's important to know about the box model is that it is a little bit of a it's a little bit of a relative topic, where it used to be the case where it was kind of inconsistent, if you will. And I'll hopefully be able to show this by just showing you an example. So you see these three elements here. They have all, like, as you can see, they're all different dimensions. So you have my div here, you have my input element here, and then you have my select here. Now, what's interesting here is that I have declared this rule here, which states that, all right, I want my width to be 100 pixels and my height to be 50 pixels. Now, this is styled the same way for both the input and the select. But why is the input bigger than the select? If they have the same rule, why are they being displayed in different ways? Well, this is where the box model comes into it, because originally it was designed in such a way that if you declared a width and a height, it was a little bit unspecified, basically, whether or not the width and the height calculations should include the border and the padding. And for a select, which doesn't have a padding to begin with, like this padding does absolutely nothing, but it does have a border, everything seems like the expected behavior, or rather the intended behavior, is being achieved here, because I have said that I want my element to be 100 times 50 pixels, no more, no less. But if I look at my input, hey, those rules are not actually being followed here, because my padding is now giving me actually adding height and width to my dimensions. And the same thing goes for the div here. So the way that this was solved, in order for us to be able to trust that, or rather declare that we have a width and a height, and we want the box model to be consistent with those restrictions, is to add, basically the standard of CSS got the box sizing option, or the box sizing property, which is this thing that I've commented out here. So if I now click this, boom, everything goes back to being consistent, because now the elements are going to follow my width and height restrictions, and the box model is now following these restrictions. In other words, the padding and the border and like all that stuff is being squished together to fit my width and height restriction. And the same thing goes for my input and the select. And now this is a very useful thing to have with you. Box sizing border box is something that you will want to use quite often because it's a bit of a hassle to try to not use it. I use it for basically every single project. I don't think I've ever actually gone without it because I want to be able to trust that if I set a width and a height, I want my width and height to be rather the padding and the border should be included in the width and the height calculation. And finally, I wanted to show you just to kind of prove my point about that everything is a box by looking at this little radius thing here. So you see here that I have basically I've declared a border radius of 50 pixels, and if we just go through the box now, you see that my content area is being highlighted to the left, and then I have my padding, and then I have a border. Notice that the border box, like as it's being painted out on my screen now, is actually still a box. It's just that I have clipped or rounded out my corners, but it's still a box. And this is what we mean when we say the box model, because whatever shape your element may have on the page, it is still just a box. Have a great day.